Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to the Empowered Educator. And this week we have another amazing topic to talk about. As a matter of fact, I actually have been working on getting myself much more organized going into the third quarter of 2025 and realizing that I'm going to be going back to school. As a matter of fact, I go back to work on Monday. I'm recording this on Saturday, July 5th. And we're going to be planning and being wild and furious with getting our plans together for back to school staff development and opening the school for the new year and being on the leadership team. I know how busy that can get. So I felt like it would be a great time for me to get a little more organized than I typically am. As a matter of fact, when I was telling somebody about it today, the person said, "Wow, if only I could be as organized as you." So I thought, okay, I'm going to take that win. So having said that, this week I want to talk about classroom management because we're in the middle or first part of July, middle of summer. And as teachers, we're starting to think about, let's get all of these appointments done. Let's start thinking about what our classroom's going to look like. What do I need to get myself ready to do back to school trainings and preparations and all of the things because it's coming fast. I don't want to burst your bubble and I don't want to take away your final weeks of summer, but some of us go back very, very soon. The teachers at my campus, July 21st. So they have like 16 days to go, right? And that includes the weekends. So they just have 2 weeks. Having said that, depending upon where you are in the world watching from, you might have a little bit more time, but we're starting to get to that place where we need to start thinking ahead. We don't want to be scrambling at the very last minute to try to get things done, right? And so we need to be prepared. And one of the things I want you to start thinking about, especially classroom teachers, is think about your management systems. Now, if you need help with this is definitely something that is a talent of mine, not just from the lens of the teacher, but as the administrator coaching teachers. We had a very succinct system within our building. And if you followed the system, teachers in my building were highly successful. But it comes with some work. And today I'm probably going to rub your feathers just a little bit, so I'm going to apologize ahead of time. But I titled this episode, Why Classroom Chaos is Not a Student Problem, for a reason, because I truly believe that that is true. Now, I have shared several times before that my first year was awful, and I quit every single day. I was afraid my principal was going to fire me. And more importantly, I was afraid I wasn't going to be asked to come back for the next year. I had moved my family 1,000 miles away. We had sold a house. We were living in an apartment. We had uprooted our daughter to come here to Houston, and I was failing. And I'm going to be honest with you, it wasn't because I couldn't teach. It was because of my management system. My kids were everywhere. As a matter of fact, when I think back on it now, I almost have to laugh because if if cell phones and all of the devices that we have now would have been around in 1995, I would have gone viral on the internet, I promise, for what it looked like in my classroom. Kids were everywhere. As a matter of fact, during my formal observation with my principal, I had a student literally get up out of her chair, go lay on the back table, and start to undress herself. Fourth grade. I had a student that meowed like a cat and crawled and hovered around all over on the floor, was eating markers, all of the things. That wasn't during the observation, but that was on a daily basis. I had students arguing with each other. I had students that didn't know what the rules were. Honestly, they didn't know what the procedures were for even handing papers in. I was a mess. And you know what? I could have blamed it on the kids all day long. I worked on the east side of Houston in a high-low socioeconomic area. I could have blamed the kids. I could have kept saying things like, oh, they're not taught at home how to respect. Oh, they're not. Oh, they're not. Oh, they're not. But honestly, the only person I could blame was myself. I didn't tell them what my expectations were on a regular basis and remind them. Yep, I set rules on the first day of school. Boom, done. Because my daughter would have followed them, right? She wouldn't have had to be reminded. I wouldn't have had to be reminded as a kid, right? So in my mind, my students didn't need to be reminded either. Kids should just know how to turn in papers, right? I'm laughing because this is not how it works. And the sooner you can get over that belief that kids are just going to know what your expectations are, the better you're going to be. When you can start to embrace and adopt the mindset of my students have to be taught my expectations. They have to be reminded of my expectation. And I have to keep those expectations consistent every single day. And that it's my responsibility as a teacher to provide structure in the classroom so that my students don't have to worry about anything except for learning the content, right? Easier said than done though, right? So we do have to embrace the fact that if your classroom is not running the way you want it to run, it is not a student problem. It is an adult problem. But that's good news. Why, you ask? Because if it's an adult problem, you can fix it. If it's a student problem, it becomes much more complicated, right? Now, I do want to preface all of this with what I'm going to say is that you are going to have, if you work in a public school, in a charter school, every once in a while, you're going to have those kids that make life really, really difficult. Okay? They're not going to go away. They're not going to just miraculously move and go to the school down the street. And chances are they're going to come to school every single day. That's a separate kind of problem. Those are the outliers. And there are support systems either at your campus or you can reach out to me, as I mentioned, and I can help you with some of those systems. Those are different. But I'm talking about for the majority of your class. If your class is out of control, the entire class, 75% of the class, 50% of the class, I'm even going to say, if more than 25% of your class is out of control, I come back to it is an adult problem. And as a reminder, that's great news because we can fix it. So how do we fix it? The first thing that we need to do is this is the time where you need to know what your expectations are. What do you want your classroom to look like? How do you want it to run? What do you expect students to do? I want you to think about everything. My assistant principal, bless her soul, I love her. She came on board with me when I took my first principal position and she was assigned to me. I didn't get to choose her. She was much older than me. She was kind of in a different era, right? And we meshed pretty well. We actually did pretty well together. But I remember she said something so profound to me. And she said the words, and this is how I knew we were going to be okay. We worked together for 6 years. She said, I don't think teachers realize that there's a whole world in their classroom at the surface level, meaning above the desk, above the table. And then there's a whole another world going on underneath. And I thought, you know what? That's a great way to put that because there is. And when your evaluator comes in, when your visitors come in, and when your students are sitting in there, they're going to see both worlds. But you as a teacher, you might not necessarily see that. So that's something to plan for. Think about what's happening on the surface level and what's happening underneath, deep down. Also, you need to think about how do you want your students to address each other? What kind of community do you want to build in your classroom? All of those things, you envision the classroom you want to have. And once you get that vision, then we just have to build it. We backward design. We figure out, okay, how do I teach the procedures, the expectations in the classroom? What are my rules for this classroom? How do we do things when we're in here? How are we organized? What does everything look like? How can I see all that's going on? What are my systems to make sure that we're focused on instruction and not just correcting behaviors? How do I keep students engaged? It's a lot of moving pieces, y'all. A lot of moving pieces. But when you think about all of those things, and then you can actually design that room the way you want it, your students will start to respond. As long as you're consistent, as long as you have those pieces in place. And then if something goes sideways, you have the mental capacity to fix it because one, you realize that when something goes wrong, it's an adult problem. And two, you're not dealing with chaos every day. So you're not going home exhausted. It's putting the work in on the front end to reap the benefits on the back end. And I promise you will enjoy the benefits of that. So here's what I want to tell you. Number one, I can't tell you everything in just this one short episode of what to do to manage your classroom in a way that students want to be there and they're fully engaged and you don't have chaos. But I can do so in the Uncommon platform. And we're going to be focusing a lot moving forward, especially throughout July and August, on specifically this as you are preparing for back to school. I also can say you've got systems in place on your campus, or you should, for a mentor, for colleagues, for your network, for people that you can reach out to. If this is an area that you're having some difficulty with, reach out and get some help. And bottom line, if worse comes to worse and push comes to shove and you need one-on-one help, reach out to me because I will give you a very great deal on a package where we can work together for a couple of weeks and get your systems in place, even virtually if we have to, so that you can have the best school year yet. Because I do say this, and I said this to my teachers over and over and over, you can plan the most beautiful lesson with the most amazing activities and have the highest expectations for your students to learn. But if they're not paying attention and they're not behaving in the classroom, it's not going to matter because they're not going to participate. They're not going to listen. They're not going to engage. And you're just going to be up there showing a show and they're not really doing anything. So let's get this piece right so that you can go on to enjoy an amazing school year. All right, y'all. I'll see y'all next week right back here on Empowered Educator. Oh, hey, before I go though, head over to uncommonedu.com. Check it out because it might be something that just does provide you with the exact thing you need to be that educator who does hard better. Promise you, it's pretty amazing. All right, y'all. I'll see you soon.